everybody. Today we're going to talk about adding filters to a grid. As you know, we can add, we've discussed this in previous videos, we can add filters to any grid by clicking the filter container. Here the attribute then shows a filter container where we could add there a group and maybe some additional fields like drop down and buttons or whatever, everything which we need in a filter. Now you can do it in this way, but you could also do that dynamically from the endpoint. So I'll just delete that. So I'll just have an empty filter container, and I'm going to now populate this filter dynamically from the endpoint griddef. The griddef is of course the grid definition, and it will contain stuff like that. This dynamic build is quite useful if you want to customize a little bit the behaviors of the filters, or the having a certain filter for a specific customer and not for another customer. That could be used in that way. So if we go to the griddef of my customer endpoint here, as you can see here, I have a default procedure which is grid filters, and this is where I can create my filters. So I'll go ahead and copy some existing code. Alright, there it is. So basically this is what we're going to be adding. So the first thing we're going to add, as I did before manually, is add a form group, and the name of the form group is form group filters. The label is filters, and these are some styling options, for example to remove some padding, and to put the label bold, text color, etc., align it right, and give it a certain icon here, which is the FA filter. Next, I'm going to add a input filter name here, and the label is name. And next I'm going to add a filter state with the label state, and this one is a drop down, and please use the endpoint list state. Now let's go ahead and have a quick look at the result. I'll open the portal. There you have it, dynamically created filters. They work exactly the same way as manually added filters. They're just built dynamically. Let's say New York or Kentucky, whatever. There you go, filters applied. Of course, the same rule applies when you're if you want to apply the filters. It's the same as adding them manually. So of course you have to add these things into the grid data endpoint to apply them to the query. Now let's have a look what is in this procedure here. So I'm going to open this include here where I have my procedures, and I have here the procedure create new filter. So basically what you will see here is that it's going to create a temp table called ttGridFilters, and it's going to return that in the response of the griddef endpoint request to build the grid, and of course also the filters. So every time you call this endpoint, you can basically pass a parent control name. If you leave that empty, it's going to do a find last parent and apply that one. This is your control name, which is your name of your object. Caption, do you want a label, yes or no? The type, input, drop down, autocomplete, toggle box, whatever. Data type, is it an integer, is it a character? All these things which you pass like data type are then used to set a certain data format, unless you specify a data format, and then we'll apply that. Then we have your items data source and your items data source filter. That's for lists and radio sets, etc. And for the state, we have used list state in this example, as you can see here, list state, which we have made in a previous example or previous video. So the item data source is added here, and also the filters, because you can pass along some filters if you need to. The rest, here you can see where additional stuff is added, like the label, data type, data format, no label, and maybe some other attributes which you want to pass in this attributes field. Any attribute will work as long as it's defined on that specific object type. So if I would have a look on an input field, then I know that any of these attributes I could use also dynamically. So I have full control over all my dynamically created filter fields. There you have it. That's it for today, and see you next time.